What is your DM thinking? Last week, I filmed Draw Steal to find out. I have 7 takeaways from the session you can use to improve as a DM. How to deal with awkward silences, how to find custom monsters for your game, how to run villains that want to win without being a wang rod, and so much more. At the start of the session, there are 2 things you can do to ruin your player's engagement before you even start. Do you think your character would be someone who would arrive early to this kind of event? You've been summoned forth as like an adventurer. Do you think you'd be early? Do you think you'd be late? Do you think you'd be exactly on time? What's kind of the vibe? What would you do if you were the DM? Particularly early with new groups, when you ask your players a question for the first time, you're putting them really hard on the spot. They've never played this character before, they might not even have thought about it a lot. And when you try to force them to talk really, really quickly, you're going to get moments like these. The important thing here is to remember, the silence isn't bad. What you want to do as the DM is in your head, count 10 seconds in your head. It's a really long time, but it also helps signal to your players that you're not going to say anything else. There's not going to be another thing you're going to say. There's not more that they need to wait for. They need to talk now. And if you give them that time, they will start talking.
I think Dimitri would probably end up. we were all waiting to see if anyone else would go first, and then we all tried to go. Yeah. I think Dimitri would probably be the last one to show up.
The first 5 seconds are them just realizing that you finished your sentence, and the next 5 seconds are them figuring out what to say. It's most important that you don't immediately jump onto the next thing, because then your players are going to learn not to jump in. You want to teach your players that when you stop talking and ask a question, you're going to stay silent until they answer, because then they will answer, then they will be ready to answer when those situations come up. There's another thing you can do early on to kill engagement in sessions. How do you normally respond when someone tells you what they want to do? I think the best response is to add more detail, because in this situation...
He wouldn't go, if possible, he wouldn't take the middle road, or the middle way.
Yeah.
And he would try to just slowly step to the right side and go hugging the wall, basically.
When you get up to the high table, the mayor sticks out his hand and is like, "Hello, hero. Are you answering the call?"
It seems the call has been given.
I got my player to engage more in the world. They told me more about their character. We had a longer chat. You want to avoid repeating back to them what they've said. That is something that's called DM re-naration. You can watch a whole video on it here by a really cool D&D tuber. The TLDR is that it's any time a DM re-describes what a character would do in their own words. You're taking control of that character away from that player and holding on to it, which is one, very tiring for you and adds more to your mental stack. And 2, it means they don't have control of their character and they're here to play their character, not listen to you play their character. The other one of just moving on with nothing else to say, it can often make your player feel a little bit like shut down, like you've not engaged with them. They've just said something and you've moved on. We're here to roleplay, we're here to engage with one another. When your player gives you something, respond back if you can, at least once or twice, just build that dialogue. Particularly early in a session, it can help you build a relationship between you and the player and learn what they want to know in the game. So after the initial chat with the mayor, the players now know the adventure. They need to go fight this ice wolf. So they head off up the road into the blizzard. But they're expecting a fight, so let's switch it up a little bit. The first thing they encounter on the road is you just hear a very loud bleat and then an explicit word in Kalian, and then more bleating. I started with this because I wanted to break the tension. I actually had quite a few of these kind of problems listed. I felt I only needed the one to break the tension, to relax the party into this so they weren't stressing out.
Do we have a sneaky person? Yes, we have a shadow, right?
It would be very easy, if you want to avoid the threat, it would be very easy to just sneak around him.
Just a farmer whose feet got stuck in some snow.
Shouldn't we, help him or something? Isn't that what we do?
Yeah. No. Go forward towards the guy. Yeah.
The point of this is to release tension and build towards the fight, but it's also so I can gain information like marching order and affect that in a way where they will behave casually. Now that they're not stressed out that they're going to get into a fight, they're going to behave differently. That means when you see a family of 4, it's 2 women leading 2 children just behind them, and they're battling against the snow heading north. They don't think anything of it when I ask who is looking after who. They each, after a little bit of prompting, take one of the family members under their wing, and that means when the ice wolf attacks and tries to get to the family, they're not in the best marching order because they were looking after the family. If I'd asked them that right away, I reckon they'd have been much more suspicious of the family and fought much more tactically, even though they knew the encounter was coming up. Because of the farmer, they reacted slightly differently. They weren't fully tense. They'd relax, and that made them make poor, more realistic decisions. If you check this book, you're going to notice that there isn't an Ice Wolf stat block. That's because I used a custom stat block. And there's 3 main ways you can get custom stat blocks in Draw Steel. You can kit bash stat blocks together. You can reskin a monster and just change the damage type and the descriptions. You can go to strawl.app and look at their list of third-party supplements. Link in the description. For the Ice Wolf, I did something kind of in the middle. I used the Thorn Dragon stat block, and I placed it in a couple of things from other stat blocks. Specifically, the Fossil Cryptic was one of my big inspirations. The idea behind this is that it's just enough to give it a little bit of spice, and I reskinned the damage types. I did this instead of a full reskin because some of the Thorn Dragon's abilities are very dragony, right? I know that's obvious, but some of the abilities just wouldn't convert to being an Ice Wolf. So I took those abilities that didn't work and swapped them out with abilities from another class. But I'm not perfect. I messed it up a little bit. I realized that it had too much HP. If you were in that situation, what would you do? I personally reduced the HP mid-fight. I realized that halfway through round 3, it wasn't even winded. That meant the fight might last 6 or even 7 rounds, which is far too long for a Draw Steel combat. You mostly want them to last around 3 or 4 rounds. I realized I also needed to change it mid-fight, because part of the point of this encounter was showing the players what the Ice Wolf could do, so that when they got into the main fight at the end of the adventure, they could prepare for it. They could try and bait the Ice Wolf into doing certain things. They could learn about its abilities. This also wasn't the only thing I had to change mid-fight. I'd messed up the triggered action. I'd made it a free trigger instead of a trigger, and that would have given it even more HP. Right before the session, I realized that I'd given it too much stability. There were a bunch of typos I had to fix and weird rulings I had to make on the fly. So the purpose of this fight was mostly so the players could learn about the Wolf's stat block, so that when they came for the major fight at the end, they weren't being completely surprised. So that meant we needed an encounter objective where the Wolf killing the players wasn't his objective, because that wouldn't be fair to them when they didn't know it was coming up. That's why I had the family in already. The player's encounter objective was to get the entire family to the safe zone at the end. The Wolf just wanted to kidnap one of them. Once the Wolf got to lower HP and realized it wasn't going to win the fight that time, the Wolf tried to grab one of the family members and run away with it. It was only because of a very, very fast Shadow and Beast Heart that they were able to keep up with the Wolf and not let it get away. This is what we talked about last week, about the villain can want to win, but winning shouldn't mean killing the players. If winning had been killing the players, I could have killed a player. One of the players got isolated from the rest of the group, but that wouldn't have been fun, that wouldn't have been dramatic. The hero saving the child who's been kidnapped with the wolf is far cooler than the heroes slaying the wolf.
The bear is going to crawl 2 squares up, moving me 2 squares. And then I need to get within 10 of the boy. So let's get the measure tool out. I have exactly enough to get here.
Nice.
And then I'm going to use body swap. I'm going to effect teleport in an ally space. So basically that boy. So what's happening is Cruz is running up here and then just like raising the head of is exchanging again with the bear, the head of the dragon. And it's going to just like fling it like a lacrosse ball at the bear. And then then you're going to see Cruz, like the stagehand, morph into the boy. And where the boy was in the jaws of the wolf, Cruz is suddenly there, catches the head of the thing, and then just slams it, or tries to stab the bear instead.
Once that fight was over, once the players had won, we needed to move on to the next part of the adventure. But before that, I wanted a little moment of downtime again. I wanted to slow the game down again to the pacing, so we're not always at this mad dash to victory. That's why I brought in the monastery. And this is a bit that didn't go super well. And there's a light on in the main room. And as you approach, you can hear the sound of a hymn being sung inside. And as you enter, you see a group of 5 or 6 monks praying around a large fire. And when they finish the prayer, the eldest of them looks up and goes, "Hello, travelers. I hope you are not too cold."
We have some people who are hoping to be able to stay here for a bit. And we were told you have information about the Ice Wolf's hideout.
I wanted to bring down the stakes, and the players were not interested. The players had a plan, and they wanted to get to the end of the adventure. Fairs, it was getting kind of late. I originally at the time was worried that I'd actually messed up the RP, that maybe I hadn't played the father very well, the priest very well. But the players didn't really engage with the priest. They just directly started asking me questions about the world and decision making. I did have the priest ask them, "You see local people, did you help all the people you met along your way?"
Yes.
Yes, we did.
Then I think the saint would want you to have this. And he goes into like a back room, and he comes out holding a cloak, which is distinctly blue I did have the priest ask them if they helped everyone they could along the way, because if they hadn't, that wouldn't have been very heroic. I wanted to punish them. And because they had, he gave them a blue cloak. Now, obviously, that's a very good trinket for this adventure. It's cold damage, and that's why I gave it to them. That was the kind of tipping point, right? In that first encounter when they had no victories, the wolf was really scary. But now that they're gaining victories and they're getting the trinket, the wolf is now something they can defeat. If I throw them into a life or death fight, they're probably not going to die. They're probably not going to fail. And that's just nicer for them. An interesting part of the adventure for me was that my notes kind of assumed that the players would want to stay the night in the monastery. But my players didn't. They wanted to keep going. And they asked me, but first, warm yourself and spend the night.
It's cold enough outside already.
It's not like we're not running danger of it being fully rested up if we wait the night, right?
If you wait the night, it will heal. So currently, if you went tonight, you'd get there and it would be at its winded value. If you rest the night here, it will be it will be halfway from winded to full. All that would happen if you went tonight is the montage test would be hard instead of moderate. What would you do in that situation? I think it's obvious which of these is good, but it did cause a knock-on effect which I struggled to deal with. Because they didn't stay the night, the montage test then became harder. It needed 7 successes instead of 6, and I'd only prepped 5 problems, thinking that something would come up. This meant as the encounter went on, I slowly had to introduce more problems to the pool. My mental stack was actually starting to be quite filled up. As this happens, you guys all kind of notice that the storm almost has you always start hearing in the storm voices like there's somebody like it's almost like degrading a little bit. It's like, you won't make it, turn around, you'll fail, there's no hope. So a new problem that emerges at this point is that there are voices in your heads.
Sorry, this head is full. Please go look for a different one.
So that
the voice mailbox of the person you're trying to reach has not been set up.
My mental stack was actually starting to get quite full up. It was late at night, I was getting tired, and that meant I really struggled to communicate the extra problems I was bringing into the players. And that led to a lot of awkward conversations. We got there in the end, I did manage to explain it to them, but I think if I could go back, one of the things I'd love to add to my note is to add more problems. Don't do exactly 6 problems, because I think then the players get left with only things that they kind of don't want to do or that are quite boring. I think having that range of things is useful for the party in the montage test. They played the montage test very well. They got straight successes, which meant they got 2 victories. And that meant when they got to the fight, they were even more powerful than I'd kind of anticipated. And they played it really, really well. They started by having the shadow sneak into the cave and explore and learn the lay of the land. That meant they were able to plan quite well to defeat the wolf. They knew they needed to destroy the statue. They put 3 players in one side of the room to bait the wolf out. And they put 2 of the other players in at the side to go and attack the statue. But this raised an interesting question. Their plan required the wolf to behave sub-optimally. The wolf would have to charge the 3 characters who didn't want to attack the statue. If you were in that situation as a DM, what would you do? For me, I let the wolf charge out. My logic is, the players did a really good job of planning, they played it very methodically, they thought it through, they were having a good discussion. It's okay to let them win. But I did have an ace up my sleeve. Because they basically split the party, when the wolf charges out, it's exclusively targeting the 3 players who are baiting it out, and is going to hit Zayak and Varga with the paw and bite.
I saved the 3 damage.
And then both your agilities are less than 3, so you both get slid free. If the other group hadn't done such a good job with the statue, being able to destroy it on round 1, I think it could have killed one of the other players. It was a high risk, high reward strategy, and I let it play out. That didn't mean that I just let them destroy the statue. After the initial turns, the wolf noticed that the statue was being melted, something it didn't want to happen, so it grabbed one of the other players and dragged it back to its cave. Now the party is still split up, they're still recovering from their mistake, and some of their players are really low. But it was very cool, it was very fun for the players to see their plan play out, and they won. They got their reward. Always remember, the villain wants to win, but the villain isn't you. You have more information than the villain is privy to, and you shouldn't take actions based on things that the villain wouldn't know. Basically, don't be a wangrod. Wow, that was a long session. I've already done my base cut of the video at this point, which was about 5 hours of footage. I've cut down to this, and now I've recorded this, so this was a lot of work. If you enjoyed this video, click this video to learn how to make towns, and click on this video if you don't know what to watch. YouTube is going to recommend something to you. And I just want to thank you for spending your time with me today. There's about 700 new faces around the channel, and I just really appreciate all of the support and love on the previous video. I hope you guys like this one as much as you did that one.